Throughout the whole year of 2024, I did not get sick, not once. And I'm actually known to be somebody who's like prone to get sick really easily. And when I get sick, it's just like miserable. It's horrible. And throughout the whole year of 2024, I did not get sick once. And so I went back to my hometown for winter break from college. And then I went back to my college town to continue my winter semester. And as soon as I was going back to my college town, I got sick. And so the first week of school was syllabus week, thankfully, but I was super sick, and I came back to my room, and I had cleaned my room before I left, but I came back, I was sick, I was absolutely going through it. And then after I recovered from being sick, everything was just moving so slow. Like, usually classes pick up pretty quickly in university, but everything was moving slow. I wasn't having any assignments. I didn't really have anything going for me. A bunch of people that I talked to, in my residence building, a lot of them hadn't come back from winter break. So it was just kind of like very, very quiet and peaceful, and that quiet and that peace disturbed me. And I had to sit with myself for a second and ask myself, why is silence and peace and just rest bothering me? And I realized that God was trying to teach me how to release control by unlearning trauma responses. We have no clue how much our trauma responses are in the little things we do. Like, I love to say, I love working. I'm so productive. I love being productive. But in reality, that productivity is not actually being productive. It's being a workaholic. And I realized that I got that from growing up in an environment that was constantly in disarray and constantly in chaos. And so the best way that I could avoid that chaos and not confront that chaos and not hurt myself further was overworking myself and being distracted, right? And obviously working and whatever, that's productive, that's good, right? You're distracting yourself with something good, but it comes to the point where you're not getting sleep or you're not eating properly, right? And so when I came back, right, from fall semester, where all I was doing was working and there was so much to do, only to come to winter semester and there's literally like nothing to do. It's completely still. Come second week of January, there's still nothing going on. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm bored out of my mind. I feel like I'm being unproductive. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm not hearing God's voice. And God had to check me in that moment and let me know that, like, He's pushing me to rest. Oftentimes we think the more we do, the better, but sometimes less is more, right? And when we're constantly in this state of work, and we're constantly filling the void and we're constantly looking for distractions, we don't have time to sit with ourselves. And that stuff builds up. And for so long, God has been speaking to me about entertainment and how we have, as a society, have just become so obsessed with the entertainment industry that we can't eat without watching something. We can't invite friends over without watching something. We can't do a hobby without watching something or listening to something. We can't sleep without listening or watching to something. Like, it's ridiculous how much we rely on entertainment to fill those voids. And I think what it really is for a lot of us is that especially if you come from a background where there's always chaos, there's always yelling, there's always screaming, there's always miscommunication. When you come from a chaotic background where there's always something chaotic happening, there's always a state of disarray, that peace can feel like suffering. And I think it's so crazy how, we can take being at peace and not having any problems as suffering, right? We get so used to always being financially unstable. We get so used to always having toxic relationships. We get so used to always eating unhealthy that when we start eating healthy and taking care of our health, when our finances are booming, when we start to develop healthy relationships, we get bored. We find that a lot of people, a lot of women, for example, who will get into a relationship with a man will be in this healthy relationship with this man and start to ruin it by convincing herself that he's cheating, or that by convincing herself that he's boring, when in reality the relationship is just healthy. And so because of our trauma responses, we feel this need to control the narrative. And when I got sick coming back home from the winter break and had to start winter semester, and God was forcing me to sit down and to let my body rest and to do nothing, I was fighting it. Like, I was quite literally fighting my own healing. And a lot of the times we don't think about it that way, but that's exactly what we're doing. I was fighting my own healing because I felt the need to have control over my situation. I was sick, but I didn't want to be, so I wanted to change that. I was not doing anything and resting, so I didn't want to be, so I wanted to change that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, God is sovereign and he's the one in control. So what he says goes. What God does, whatever, in the book of Psalms, it says God does whatever he pleases to do. And so I had to, in that moment, sit back and rest and ask myself why I was so upset with rest, why I was so upset with peace and quiet. And ultimately, when we release control and we start to unlearn our trauma responses, we have to lean into the uncomfortable. It is crazy that peace is uncomfortable for me. It is crazy that quiet is uncomfortable for me. It is crazy that silence and just sitting in one spot is uncomfortable for me. It's crazy that my mind not racing is uncomfortable for me. But those are all a result of trauma responses and our need to constantly be in control. A lot of people would be completely healed of all the strongholds in their lives if they would release control. And the ego and pride is a very powerful thing. The Bible says pride comes before the fall, and my people perish for a lack of knowledge. When we're trying to be in control, when we're acting like we know it all, when we're acting like we're in control of the situation and the narrative, that's when everything begins to crumble. But sometimes things in our life needs to crumble before our eyes in order for God to sit us down and rebuild it. In order for God to sit us down, teach us a lesson, and then test us. He might put you through a month of testing. I've taught you the lessons. We've broke down the strongholds. We've identified the distractions. Now I need to see how you operate with the new tools that I've given you. And so the best way to unlearn our trauma responses is to release control.